welcome to the Odditorium. I'm your herd leader, Adam, and today I'd like to talk to you about my top 10 games. I wanted to create this list because I think these 10 games bring something fun, or at least, in my opinion, something fun and unique to the board game community. The beauty of our hobby these days is the vast amount of games that are out in circulation for us to play, digest, look into, and enjoy with our friends or solo, really, because some of these actually I've found I play solo a lot more than I play with other people. Um, I'm just gonna give highlights on why I think they're great games, not full reviews. Almost every game has some form of flaw or another, but we won't dive into that. I'm just going to give a brief snippet on why I think some of these games are great. I do have one honorable mention that I did want to throw in there. It's a little bit of a caveat of today's gaming world. It is currently the end of April 2021. So this list is ever changing. And also with Kickstarters arriving, my rule is in order for a game to be in my top 10, I do physically have to have it. My honorable mention is Uprising Curse of the Last Emperor. That is currently Kickstarter is completed, Pledge Miner is closed. They're in production. I'm hoping to have it this year. I played it a lot on Tabletop Simulator. Actually, probably one of my most played games of 2020. And that's why it's my honorable mention, because if I actually physically had it in hand, it would make it on this list. But following my rules of having to physically have a board game, and why I say that is we do live in a world of Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia and multiple versions of tabletop games on the internet. And I think it's really important to support the publishers that you find you enjoy or games you like. And I understand that times can be tough. Or I think all those things are great tools to test out a game. But if you really like it and play it a lot, I really promote supporting that company and buying that game, whether it's secondhand or from a store or directly from the publisher or creator themselves. But that physical in hand component for me is important. So that is why Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor is my honorable mention for this list. Going into number 10. Number 10 for me is Lords of Hellas. Now, I know this isn't as popular as Blood Rage, but I personally enjoy this theme more. It is rated 228 on the overall Board Game Geek list, and why I want to point that out is some of my games are not popular by any means, and some of them are, as I've stated. This is definitely one that's not necessarily middle of the road. I have some pretty ones that are far down the list, but that's neither here nor there. Jumping in why I like Lords of Hellas. Like I said, I love the theme. I've always been a Greek mythology nut. I've always enjoyed it, taking classes through school and just truly enjoying movies and books around it. So the theme is a big plus. So we got that. I don't mind kind of the steampunk, cyberpunk theme that they kind of meshed with that Greek mythology. It seems to work pretty well. I'm working on some current projects with my 3D printer to kind of deluxify the game a little bit as well. But another reason why I really like it is I think it has a very simple rule set. Once you kind of understand the basics of the game, what you're looking for winning, and kind of the rules behind each of the actions, which are basically spelled out in front of you on your player sheets, you can have newer players jump in pretty quick. I know when learning this game, it was an entire group of new players, and we were able to jump in really quick into the game, and we had a fantastic time. Another big plus for me is the multiple avenues for victory. So there are multiple ways to win, whether it's conquering territory, killing beasts, building and holding a monument region, or I think there's one more in there. Temples, yes, owning so many temple spaces. So I do like how the strategy folds out like that. And some people say, oh, some are imbalanced, and I think it's just a lack of play per se. from what I've gathered. And when the group that I was playing with was learning, and I heard that the hunting of the mythological creatures was the easiest avenue for victory, I was upfront and told everyone, hey, this is what I've heard. So if it's apparent that someone's doing that, don't let them do it. And just them having that knowledge prevented anyone from winning that way. It actually ended up being a kind of a sneak in victory of owning temple tiles, and that was just, it was super interesting because there's so many moving parts to it that I think it is a really interesting concept. And I know some people think that it's kind of shallow gameplay hidden by better sets of gameplay in terms of some of the victory conditions are more thought out and fleshed out. But I think it's an excellent game, and I love the minis, and that's another plus for me is all the deluxification really feels thematic to me and makes you feel like you kind of are there fighting for your territory. And that is Lords of Hellas, number 10. Number 9, Anachrony. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I think it's pronounced that way. But that is Board Game Geek's number 45. It is a very heavy game, which I lean towards, so I really like that. And I love the space sci-fi theme. I am a big sci-fi nut as well, so the theme really strikes a chord with me. At least when I first heard about it, was in between the game actually releasing and being out to the masses, and then the first expansion. I did get into the second Kickstarter they had, but some of the things that I really, really like about the game are the different worker types, because it is a worker placement. So the interesting thing to me is having those specialties of the workers is really cool, because probably my next closest worker placement that I really like is Feast for Odin. With Feast for Odin, though, you don't have any really specialties with the workers. It's more or less just the number of workers you have. So I think having the really tight worker placement spots mixed with the different types of workers, and then the super fun, well, I think it's super fun, fact of powering up the exosuits is really fantastic. Just the concept behind having to power up your exosuits in order to send your workers out prior to actually having to use them. So you're basically guessing how much power you're going to use and potentially wasting some, is a super cool mechanic to me. I also love the fact of the timeline with how you're basically borrowing resources from different parts of the timeline of your life per se, which I think is a super unique concept. It really ties the theme together for Anachrony, and then I don't know, it's just, you don't see it utilized a lot, so it feels like a really unique experience. I can also say that the board game organization and that the newest Kickstarter is fantastic, and it's a blast to own, and it's a blast to play, and I hope to get this to the table more this year for sure. So it did just arrive. Actually, it did just arrive this year. So yeah, hopefully I'll get it to the table more this year than I did last year. Seeing that I got it, I think I got it December 30th or 31st. So a couple days before this year. So a lot easier to get to the table, hopefully this year. That is my number 9, Anachrony. Number 8, to maybe not so popular demand, but it is actually my favorite Stonemaier game, which is Tapestry. Wingspan would probably be a close second, and I know a lot of fans are big fans of Scythe. Tapestry is my favorite though, and I think that's because of kind of the Civ aspect of it. And I know I would not consider this a Civ game either, but I would say it's a racing slash kind of Euro resource management game with a Civ theme. So I really enjoy it. I love the variety in factions, which just, like, in my opinion, moves up the replayability just because of the fact that, you know, you have basically a mini game you're playing with your faction and the different kind of like land types that you can then associate with that. And I think it's fun, and every time I've played it, I've always enjoyed myself. I've won easily. I've been destroyed. We've had really tight games. It's kind of been all over the board. I've seen people win down all various tracks. So I don't really believe. I know there are some imbalance issues with the some of the factions, but I've truly seen the Gambit, so I don't feel to me that that's that large of a deal. So if you've been looking at Tapestry, but you've heard maybe mixed reviews about it, I would definitely say give it a shot. If you have a friend that has it, or you have a local game store that has it, definitely give it a shot. It is a lot of fun. Um, and it does kind of give you a little bit of a Civ feel, but it's definitely not the type of Civ feel that it's like you're following down a tech tree or anything like that. You can get weird techs and weird times. There isn't really a timeline for it, but still a good game in my opinion. I don't know if I mentioned it's the Board Game Geek 237 overall, so not terrible, but definitely not like a fan favorite like Wingspan or anything like that. But that is my number 8 Tapestry. Number 7 also is hanging right around that same Board Game Geek reading. That would be 246 would be Vindication. I've really liked Vindication. I have followed most of their Kickstarters. I think I missed the first one and have been all in ever since. So the last two, I think there's been 3. Um, this is to me a really fun Euro game disguised as an adventure game. Um, and why I guess I say that is the first time we played it, it took us a long time. It felt like we were really adventuring and building our characters and things like that. It was actually over a weekend that we played it in at a convention at Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin. Um, and then the second game we played that same weekend, it was so fast. We played it unbelievably fast because of like we basically kind of figured out how to optimize that first play. We played with the same modules, which was basically I think vanilla plus 1 or 2 modules. Because if you're unaware, Vindication has a bunch of modules in the base game, and then also with the expansions they add more, and then with the latest Kickstarter they also have more expansions coming as well. So the game went from like a couple hour game to I think we maybe ended in 30 or 45 minutes. So it was very, very quick. And honestly, I felt maybe a little disappointed with how quick it was. But then as soon as we add more modules in there, it kind of mixes up the formula a little bit in terms of what people are looking for and grabbing. So I think that's very refreshing in the replayability. So the great thing is it is a quicker game to play, yet there's still plenty of variety. So that mixed together makes for a good game because I do lean towards the heavy games. So having some of these, I guess what I'd call medium or lightweight games mixed in that don't take multiple hours because of thinkiness and things like that really do help kind of bolster the collection a little bit. So I also think the art and the components are really great. I mean, there's a lot of kind of unnecessary minis and things like that, but I like the uniqueness of the board with it being like a pentagon rather than your standard circular board or square rectangular board. And so I do enjoy kind of looking through some of the cards on there. So number 7, Vindication. Number 6. Number 6 is not a stranger to anyone, so I will point out a couple of the things that I think are great. And it is the Board Game Geek number 1 overall currently, which is Gloomhaven. Yes, I drank the Kool-Aid on it. It is a great campaign game, great dungeon crawl game. And I don't think really anyone can deny it. I think a lot of people can dislike the mechanics and things of it, but I mean, if you really look at the effort and heart and soul that went into this game, it is a fantastic game. Definitely not my number 1 overall, but it is just amazing. I love the character retirement mechanic they've included. So you are playing, leveling your character, and then eventually your character will retire. The hands of cards basically being your actions and your fatigue combined is really cool. It really makes you kind of think out and try to plan out your turns along with really trying to work with your partners or the other players at the table. And I love the fact that they basically tell you don't like you can't be upfront of I'm moving at whatever number that is on your card. You have to kind of work out a little bit on trying to simulate that combat experience of well, the healer's probably going to stay back and heal, so it's okay for them to say, hey, I'm going to heal this, but it's not okay to be like, I'm healing at initiative blah blah blah. So it really is a fun mechanic on trying to like guess. Some characters are faster than others, so when they say they're moving slow, does that really mean they're moving slow at like what one of your fastest cards are? So I think that's a fantastic mechanic, and I do have to say though, I'm really looking forward to Frosthaven with the base building slash crafting add-ons. That's been a big kind of like look for me. Is I really love campaign games, but I'm really also searching for that campaign game that scratches the itch of also like kind of base building and having that be um, your like resource for being able to craft more or anything like that while also playing. So I'm very much looking forward to Frosthaven. But if you do have any other suggestions of this game like that, I know Wild Ascent is coming out onto GameFound soon, so I'll be checking that one out as well. But if you have any other suggestions about basically campaign slash dungeon crawl games that have a base building mechanic, I'd love to know about them, and please drop a comment below. But that is my number 6, Gloomhaven. Number 5 might be the the BGG lowest rated in terms of overall game at 4,147. And I also think this game is highly underrated, but it also probably doesn't help that it just came out recently. So due to COVID, there's been some delays, but this is Cedars from Ceres Exodus. It is a fantastic drafting game. Probably my favorite drafting game. I love drafting mechanics in other games. This really has a very large drafting mechanic built into it, kind of like Seven Wonders, where it's the meat of the game. There's drafting and bidding. I guess it'd be 50% of the game per se. So, but what I love about this game is I found it at Gen Con. I'm gonna have to remember the years, 2019 maybe. Yeah, it had to be 2019. So I found it at Gen Con 2019. The company had a little bit of an issue getting everyone there due to flights being canceled from France, because it is a French producer originally. The game now is out, produced by WizKids, and I highly, highly, highly recommend picking this up or trying it out or finding someone that has it. But it's a fantastic game. But what caught my eye was the box and the board. So the board is this bright blue with almost like reflective spots on it. I think that like the spot UV or whatever they call it. And then the box has this like ship with just like this ominous planet kind of in the background. And I was just like, I gotta know what this is. Like really striking that sci-fi chord with me. So went over a little bit of a language barrier when I first was learning about it, but I was determined to figure out what this game was, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was told that they only had a couple copies at Gen Con. So I was thinking about it, and like the first thing I did that day was I went back and I said, I need to have a copy of this. I bought one of the copies, and I have not regretted it at all. So more about the game. The combos are super fun and fantastic. I do have a review of this, or overview, I guess I would say, on my channel. So go check that out. I'll link that also in probably a card or this description below. But that goes more in depth to it. But there's a whole bunch of card combos that you can do to build out your ship. And that's basically what you're doing, is you're building a ship with rooms, and then you're filling those rooms with crew. And every kind of card is a unique ship or room. There's like 4 copies of each card, so not every card is unique. But I'm in terms of laying out what you have on your ship is most likely unique. But the combos are fantastic. Just kind of even like how you pick your player turn is so unique in that the reverse score order gets to pick their place. Not necessarily you're going in reverse score order, because there's benefits of going first in a turn as to last, and it's really on what phase you're in is the benefit. So that's always been, I mean, just kind of how it's pieced together is amazing. So definitely go check out Cedars from Ceres Exodus. It is a marvelous game. I know the Cedars team has more ideas. So if you guys are watching this, please come out with one. Please come out with more. I know you guys teased some. It looked like a 3.5x game, and I love my 4x games. So support these guys if you can. Check out their game. It is awesome, and I just want to really see this series move forward in the US, as I know it's also across the seas of us. So number 5, Cedars from Ceres, Exodus. My next 4 are not super exciting, I guess. Well, no, I take that back. I guess there's a couple that are higher up there, but they're definitely becoming bigger names, or are already bigger names, I feel. So my number 4 is ironically Twilight Imperium 4th edition. It'd be even better if it was the Board Game Geek number 4 overall, but it's actually number 5, awfully close. But yeah, this game is fantastic. If you give it a shot, I feel like anyone I've taught this game, they love it. I mean, truly, if time wasn't an issue, I think this would be, this could be my number 1 game. The time is an issue, so it only gets to the table so many times a year. The recent pandemic did not help that at all by any means, but it is definitely on my shelf and ready to go. I'm super excited for the expansion. But I do have to say, I have not played Eclipse yet, the Second Dawn. So for now, TI4 holds this, but I will be sometime in the future definitely checking out Eclipse. But for now, let's focus on what makes TI4 great. So I think it's one of the best Civ 4X games out there. Like I said, I haven't played them all, but it's one of my favorites. I mean, just like the amount of races they have. So you pick your race, you have your tech trees, which are all similar, but there's so many options. No one ever builds the same. You kind of have your political dance to like add into the mix of all of this, and it's so interesting because you kind of tell someone who's never played it before about Twilight Imperium, and the first place most people go is, oh, so it's like a big war game. You're like, yeah, but there's like politics and stuff mixed in, and economy and resource management. And well, what's funny is, and I think this is awesome, is so many people do not want to go to war in TI4 because it can be so detrimental. It is more like, can I carve out this little section of the universe for myself? Can I take out this? Can I somehow engage this battle, take out what I need to for my objective? Because there are objectives about fighting certain enemy ships and things like that. But can I do what I need to accomplish without starting a war? Because no one really wants to go to war in Twilight Imperium 4. So I guess the biggest contender of fights I've seen is obviously over the center planet, which controls the council, or you are like head of the galactic council per se, or politics, and so that holds a little bit of a power spot, and you can also gain extra victory points faster by being there. So that does tend to spark more conflict once someone grabs it. But yeah, TI4 is a fantastic game, and it is at my number 4 spot. Number 3. Number 3 is Cloudspire by Chip Theory Games. This is Board Game Geek's number 698. I'm honestly kind of surprised how high it is. But I also know that Chip Theory Games is kind of like a slow burner company, I'd say I'd describe them as. And what I mean by slow burner is I feel like their games are fantastic they come out with, and it's kind of at a higher price point, so it takes people longer to acquire it because it's not easy to drop $125, $150 on a base game. But their games are so worth it. Like the replayability that they come out and things like that are fantastic. So what do I love about Cloudspire? Well, I had the most experience with the solo mode, which is they're basically puzzles. And once you kind of figure out that puzzle, it's a lot easier to beat it. So it kind of dries out in replayability there. But truly, this is a fantastic way to play the game. And this is my MOBA game that I've always been searching for. I've kickstarted many other games with the MOBA tag. Cloudspire kind of has like a MOBA slash defense tower tag to it, I guess, or persona. But Cloudspire, I think, really shines with the versus mode, not the solo mode. I know a lot of people buy it for the solo mode, but if you're a big puzzle person, that's great. And with all the content they have out, and most likely will come out with a couple things in the future, there's plenty of content there to even justify the cost for Cloudspire, even at just solo mode. But I really do feel it shines in versus. Just with the choices you have, like the faction, like in AI, when you're fighting an AI, you're basically trying to manipulate the AI in advantage to win because chip theory games basically stacks the AI to be overpowered. So you have to then find ways to utilize the AI mechanics in order to work towards your advantage and kind of puzzle your way through that scenario. And there are, I guess, different levels of succeeding in the puzzle mode or in solo mode. So you can like go back if you've only accomplished like one renown as opposed to three. So you can kind of go back and try to really figure out every key to the puzzle per se in order to do that. It can be tough, like teaching people in the versus mode with the asymmetric factions, but once you get a group going, I think this is truly a plus in the fact that the asymmetric factions really shine to be unique. Like you feel like you are playing that faction that is separate than any other faction. Um, and just the choices, because and I keep on mentioning choices and I don't really explain. So choices you have are you can upgrade your fortress basically, and every faction's fortress is kind of unique in what benefits that gives. Whether that's just advantages on the battlefield, even to the point of now your minions come out leveled up. And that's the next choice you have. Every round you choose what minions come out of your fortress. So if you're thinking about a MOBA game, so like League of Legends, Dota, things like that, the minions coming out from the base, down the lanes, all are very static and the same. So in this game, though, every faction has unique minions. So you're sending out those minions or creep or whatever you want to call them to then kind of like autonoma your way through. You have some choices in it, but then they are kind of programmed to do one thing. But then at the same time, you can put out a hero as well, or build spires to help spires help defend, and then your heroes are the ones running around kind of collecting extra resources. I was going to say completing quests, but there's not necessarily really quests in the game. There's kind of like objective points that you're really trying to put pressure on. Or defeating spires and things like that. So Cloud Spire is my number 3. Fantastic game. Definitely look into it or save for it if you're on the fence and you're like, I just don't know if the cost justifies it. It definitely does. And once again, that is Cloud Spire. My number 1 and 2 are very similar in terms of type of game. However, I do feel they kind of hit different points for me, and I'll explain more. My number 2 is Hexplorit. I'm going to just categorize all of Hexplorit in the entire series, and since there are basically now 4 volumes out, 3 volumes out, the 4th in crowdfunding right now currently. But that is, I grabbed the very first one, which has the highest rating on Board Game Geek, and that is 2033. So Hexplorit, what is so awesome about it? Well, I think that the number of heroes, along with the kind of race and how you can build your hero. So you grab a race card, you can grab a trait card, you can grab an aspect, and then you grab race, trait, aspect, and then your class. There's so much I almost forgot. There's just an astronomical amount of combos between those, and there's just going to be more and more and more. And I love that each volume is basically a different game, yet the same. So your heroes work the same, how all their stats work are the same, but there's different mechanics in each volume that gives you a different game. But you can compile all those heroes from one or all 4 volumes into one chest, which is their hero chest, and then play any hero on any volume. I definitely recommend volume 1 to be kind of your like get your toes wet, dip your toes in the water, whatever you want to call it, to get into it. As it has kind of, in my opinion, the most simple mechanics for learning the game. The evil villain boss, so there's like different levels of bosses that you can fight throughout, but ultimately your end goal is to kill the strongest boss, which in the Valley of the Dead King is the Dead King. Who's running around and kind of causing havoc in the cities that you can use to turn in quests and things like that. But kind of wanting to tie this into the next one, my last point I'm going to use as a segue. So my number 2, Hexplorit, is a fantastic game. Go go support the campaign if you want. I do have like a little snippet of a kind of crowdfunding with tidbits on what you should get if you're not sure how you want to jump in, if you don't want to do all in with Explore It. I'll also link that somewhere for you to take a look at. But Hexplore to me is more of a wide character and game development game than tall. And what I mean by that is the characters all share basically two abilities that are the exact same. So my basic attack and basic defense act the same as a lot of the other characters. Then I have two special abilities that are just my own that trigger off of different stats. And then I have my racial ability. So that's the very basic at the core. So I have three abilities that are different. It's very easy to teach people this game to get them going. But why I say it's more of a wide character and game development is the amount of exploring you have to do in the land, the quests, the randomness encounters, all of that is so deep. So you can take and just keep on changing out that character because now you've learned the game, and you can play the game over and over and over and over again because of the different unique things that you're still encountering new things as you go. And I am so beyond excited for the campaign mode that they're coming out with the first one. But using this as a segue, the more Hexplore being the more wide, my more tall characteristic game, and my number one coming in at the Board Game Geek rating overall of 48 is Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones is a fantastic, also kind of, I wouldn't call it, well, I don't think either of these would be considered dungeon crawls, but more of just an adventure game, really. But Too Many Bones is my number one game. I guess if you didn't pick up on the mat here or my jacket here, or I don't know, the fact that I have a bunch of CTG stuff over there. You can't see my trove chest because it's actually on my desk here. That sits in a very proud spot, so I can look at it all day while I work and then just dream of the wonderful adventures that I have with Too Many Bones. But kind of going back to that tall versus wide is, if I were to teach brand new, newer-ish gamers a game, I would teach them Explore It. Once they get their feet with Explore It, I'll be like, here's what a game can offer you in terms of game development. Now let me show you what a game can offer you in terms of character development. And Too Many Bones is a fantastic game that you're basically leveling your character through an adventure, and you have like an encounter deck, so you're playing through encounters, and you have choices in those encounters. Sometimes you have a choice of fighting or not fighting, or taking a risk on different encounters that are non-combat related. Also, just like fun little dexterity games that they throw in, and the humor from the Chip Theory Games crew is fantastic, and really Too Many Bones is what led me to explore Chip Theory Games, and it's a rabbit hole that I would recommend to anyone. Like I said, their quality of product is fantastic, and it's just, I mean, there's a reason it's my number one and a lot of other people number ones. But the character development is awesome. You basically get 16 dice as your skills, and every dice has unique sides and unique icons. And so basically, we're going from a 3-skill Hexplore It character, and I'm not getting down on Hexplore It's character development at all. Like I said, it's still my number 2. But then we're going into Too Many Bones, basically 2-paged rule sheet for each character. So you really have to want to learn the game in order to play the game. And it is a little heavy to get into, but it's definitely manageable. But it just creates just an amazing experience. I have so much fun playing it. I feel like I've only really scratched the surface with it. It's one of those games that it could be a lifestyle game for someone. The amount of encounters they have mixed with all of their characters that they've come out with and all of their bad guys, and they're basically their bad guy creating machine with splice and dice. There is an unbelievable amount of replayability that I have. And honestly, with all these games on this list, sometimes you wonder, why are you buying more? But I mean, you buy more because you never know what's going to be around the corner. So you got to keep on exploring, keep on having fun, and keep on seeing what's there. But Too Many Bones has been at my top for a couple of years now, and I see it staying in my top 10 for a very, very long time. So rounding out My number one is Too Many Bones. So, if you're still here at the end and you like what I do here and you want to join the herd, please like or subscribe, or feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below. If you've made it this far, as always, thank you so much for watching. Keep on gaming, but don't forget to grow.